Chapter 10. We're going into chapter 10.1. We'll start off with the Pythagorean Theorem. In a right triangle, the sum of the squares of the lengths of the legs equals, and I'll write it down here, just have a little bit more room. We have that it equals the lengths of the hypotenuse squared. In other words, the hypotenuse is always opposite of that right angle. And that never changes. So if you can identify the right angle, you can go opposite of that, and there is your hypotenuse. Let's take a look at this a different way. Let's do a little bit of math. Okay, so here we have a few right triangles. So let's make sure that we can see that these are right triangles. So here is our right angle on the bottom left of each of these. Now, let's call this side A, let's call this side B, and opposite of that right angle, we're going to call that C, the hypotenuse. So what this theorem is saying is that A squared plus B squared is equal to C squared. We take the length of A, square it, add it to the length of B, and square it. That'll give us the length of C squared. I know it's a little hard to get your mind past that actually works, but it does. And again, this is only for right triangles. It doesn't work for other for other types of triangles, but it does only work for right triangles. So let's take a look at an example here. Let's call this side. Let's say this has length 3. This one here has length 4. We're trying to find the length of the hypotenuse, so we'll call this C. Opposite of the right angle is the hypotenuse. Okay, so according to this conjecture that we just got, we're going to use A squared plus B squared is equal to C squared. Do a little bit of substitution. So we have 3 squared plus 4 squared. That should give us C squared. 3 squared is 9. 4 squared is 16. That equals C squared. Now, make sure that you square before you add. Big mistake when you add before you square. So first square, then add. Let me write that here. First, square the numbers. Second, add them up. Okay, there we go. Now let's continue. We have 25 is equal to C squared. Take the square root of both sides. We end up with C is equal to 5. Now imagine that. This is a 3, 4, 5 right triangle, right? And this is one of those Pythagorean triples that we've mentioned in class before. Okay? This next example, we won't always have to solve for the hypotenuse. Sometimes we'll have to solve for a given leg. So let's say that the first one, let's say we're missing this side here, but we know that this is 4 and the hypotenuse is 5. We all know what the answer is, but let's see how do we go about solving for that missing side length, which in this case we called A. So we'll start off with A squared plus 4 squared is equal to 5 squared. Solve for A. Let's go ahead and subtract 4 squared from each side. So we have A squared is equal to 5 squared minus 4 squared. And then we get A squared. Let's clean this up a little bit. Remember, we want to square them, then in this case subtract them. So we have 25 minus 16. Do a little bit of math there. We have A squared is equal to 9. Take the square root of both sides. We have A is equal to 3. Whoa, mind blown, right? So here is that's how you would solve if one of the different sides was missing. Okay? But what if the other side was missing? Let's go ahead and let's try solving for not the vertical one, but the horizontal one. Okay? Let's try solving for that one. So let's do it. So here we have, we're going to call this length 3. We don't know this one. Let's call this B. Here's our right angle. Opposite of that right angle is a hypotenuse that has length 5. So here we go again. Let's go ahead and do this. So we have 3 squared plus B squared is equal to 5 squared. Remember, the C is always by itself when we begin. Now we have B squared is equal to 5 squared minus 3 squared. So we have, there it is. And again, very similar to the previous problem, we want to square before doing any kind of addition or subtraction. So we have 25 minus 9, and we end up with B squared is equal to 16, giving us that B is equal to 4, and voila. So we can get the answer either way that we choose to. So that is section 10.1, having 10.1 having to do with the Pythagorean theorem. Make sure you go back, pause whenever you feel you have to go pause, rewind, understand the material before you move on to the next one.